Opinions vary ethically on the rights and wrongs of assisted dying. So those in favour of assisted dying tend to use or refer to two main arguments. The first of these is the argument based on the idea of choice and what people want. So they say if people want assistance in dying for themselves, then they should be free to have this. And the second argument that can be used, sometimes in relation to that one or sometimes on its own, is an argument that refers to quality of life and suffering and the like. So in other words, if there is a life that is of very poor quality, a life of great suffering, pain, distress and the like, then perhaps it can be acceptable to assist that person to die. Opponents, however, refer to other arguments and they deny that the arguments being given by the supporters are ethically appropriate. So the first argument the opponents use is the argument based on the value not of quality of life, but of life itself. So they say life is so valuable, we should not be taking steps intentionally to end it. A second argument that the opponents refer to is one that we might refer to in terms of the so-called slippery slope or thin end of the wedge. In other words, if we allow assisted dying now, today, for a particular person, then what might the future look like? Will it be dangerous? Will it be risky? Will the vulnerable be put at risk? And a third argument that the opponents sometimes refer to is one that looks to medicine itself. If we're talking about doctors performing assisted dying, then what are we going to do to the moral fabric of medicine? Doctors are traditionally there to care and treat. Will we fatally undermine that role?
My position on assisted dying is not overly useful because I am confused and conflicted and unsure. I know that if I got to the point where I would like to ask for help in my dying, I would like to be in a place where somebody could help me. But actually, I think that's possibly to help me with those feelings at the time.
So one of the issues that worries me a lot is the fact that the law in this country is actually unsafe as it stands at the moment. Although assisting suicide is a crime, in fact, the guidance from the Director of Public Prosecutions is that in case of somebody out of compassion assisting somebody else to die, it's not in the public interest to prosecute. That strikes me as very, very dangerous because these things are done in private between people who are emotionally involved, typically very close relatives. They're not professionals, they have not had counselling. It isn't necessarily the best decision. They're not going about it in a medically safe and easy way. There are lots of ways in which people who try and take their own lives or ask assistance to for unqualified, well-meaning, compassionate relatives to help them, it can go horribly wrong. And there's always that threat of prosecution. That is a very dangerous situation to think that the law will turn a blind eye to that. That is not the right way forward, in my view.
So assisted dying is a very complex issue, and I don't think I've reached a strong conclusion from my own point of view, because I think it's very complicated. I do not see many patients who request assisted dying or have thought about those sort of issues. Well, they may have thought about it, but they haven't discussed them with me. In most cases, we can palliate symptoms and help a person to die in as comfortable a way as possible, and so assisted dying doesn't come into it. I think clearly some patients or some people in very difficult circumstances where they feel that assisted dying may give them another option at the end of life, but we have to be cognizant of the arguments for the slippery slope of if it became legal or more commonly available, would patients who are maybe causing what they perceive as a burden to their families due to care, whether they would feel that they should take that path of assisted dying when maybe given their own free choice they wouldn't do so. So I think the people who take the slippery slope argument have a point, but at the same time it is very difficult in some circumstances to not say that somebody should have the legal option to decide when their life ends if they are in the best position to do that and are psychologically prepared and in a suitable position to make that argument. But I haven't come to my own conclusions, I have to be honest.
The key issues in the assisted dying debate, I think, are really balancing personal autonomy against the public good. And there are people who feel very strongly on both sides of the argument, that personal autonomy is all, and that if somebody feels that their situation is intolerable, then they should have the right to die and to be assisted in that death. And interestingly, I think that if you look at, for instance, medical students, really they have lay views. And I remember as a medical student being pro-euthanasia or assisted dying. And the more people I've looked after and the more senior I've become, the more anti-assisted dying I am. And that is not to say that I haven't met people in my work as a doctor where assisted dying would have been the right option for them. I have to say that in probably 20 years of palliative care, I can still remember them all and list them on the fingers of one hand. But I feel very strongly that they need to be the losers, if you like, in an argument where the vast majority would be the people who gained from that argument, by which I mean we would protect people who are temporarily in the depths of despair, or who feel that they're a burden, or who have been in control the whole of their lives, and this is the first time they're not in control because they have something that's going to kill them, and who find that really, really difficult, who might choose to go for an assisted death. And I have looked after a lot of people who have said, "Can you not kill me? I would wish to die now," who have said to me, not very long afterwards, "I could have been dead, and you know, now I'm here and I've been able to do things I want to do and say things I want to say and see people I want to see." So people do change their minds, and I think most of them change their minds, actually.